Greetings, fellow Earthlings. Welcome to another episode of And Another Thing with Dave. Seeking the truth, exposing the lies. Remember, together, we are unstoppable. Keep on digging.
Like what you're describing is a perfect example of a lack of oversight, right? Because fracking, or what it's a perfect example of, is how the profits are privatized, but the losses are socialized, right? And fracking is a perfect example because now Oklahoma's never had earthquakes before. Now they're having tons of earthquakes. Like basically every place they're fracking is erupting with all these earthquakes, right? And destroying infrastructure and all this. But then that loss, that massive loss, is socialized. The oil company gets to keep their profit. That is crazy.
Yeah, it's anti-capitalist in a sense because you're like, if you're truly wealthy, right? Like you get to a point where you're a billionaire, okay? Are you truly wealthy if you can't walk everywhere in your environment? So you can't go down to certain areas because there's so many people that have nothing that you're like, oh God, it's like they feel uncomfortable. Like true wealth is that the bottom is so high up, right? Everybody has a house, everybody is living healthily. Like they like you could go anywhere within your country and not feel uncomfortable. Like that perspective is like true wealth. Like you know what I mean? If you get people to that point, then you're like at a place where I don't know if I've kind of ran off the track here.
I forget who it was. I forget who I heard a quote by, but it was basically saying some billionaire saying, "I'd be willing to pay more to make it so I never had to walk up by a homeless person again because it hurts my heart so much that it you know, like you're saying, quality of life, that hurts his heart so much it fucks up his day. He'd rather pay more so that people don't have to suffer like that." That was at least one person. I just wish more people thought like that and governments joined them.
Yeah. So a couple things were happening there. One, the whole thing where the idea that people would identify our version of capitalism as crony capitalism. I would say it's the natural course of capitalism. Just as a Marxist, but it's not anti-capitalist that we socialize the losses and obviously privatize the successes or the profits. That's actually a function of capitalism because it serves capitalists to do that, right? Like they've always had ways out. Very few, at least in recent years, very few capitalists have ever had a problem so large that it couldn't be money could not be thrown at it, or they could just default and the government would find ways to subsidize those losses and put them on the backs of the working class. Yeah,
it's crazy, but it's beautiful, crazy.
Let's get to these messages here because I don't want to leave them sitting in the queue too long, and then we'll get back into the conversation. I do have a question then, but let's get Leonard. Do you want me to play your message, or do you want? Are you?
You can skip it. It was just it was just sharing love with you guys. So nothing I haven't already said.
Well, all right, we'll get to Chris here. Chris, what's up, brother?
Hey guys, let's see the topic. There's something I've been very interested about. I know we don't practice capitalism in our house, or do we? Do you guys know anybody who practices capitalism amongst their children and cousins and whatnot? Because my thought is that if you won't bring it in the house, why play it on the outside? Do you know what I'm saying? So I just need to go gather some more evidence to see if people are behaving in a capitalistic way inside of their immediate household and with their families and whatnot.
Wow, great point. I know some women are. Oh,
so who has who has children in this room? I don't want to, you don't have to answer if you don't feel comfortable, but who does have children in this room?
Bjorn. Yeah.
So Bjorn, I guess what do you? And I guess I'm kind of curious as maybe he can elaborate like what he means by practicing capitalism in the household. But what would your response to that be, Bjorn?
Well, in my house, depending on how much work around the house that my wife does, then I give her an allowance based on like a per hour rate. And so if she does the laundry at a certain rate and doesn't fall behind, then I will give her money. But if not, then
Good man.
No, that sounds terrible.
Did you import her from a country with a good low wage? I hope.
Dude, that's so bad.
No, but like, yeah, I mean, it's a ridiculous like scenario, of course. But yeah, I mean, like, I'm so like, I mean, I think
Well,
like
I would like to find
pretty
my-
soon after we were just dating, I think we got a joint checking account, just because we didn't want to like think about it or worry about it. Like, and I think a lot of people have separate finances and spouses and things, and that's fine with me. But like, yeah, we're all like, it's all in one pot, and we just do what things we need to do. And if there's big purchases, we like have a conference, but typically we just, do whatever we need to do without really consulting the other one. I think it's all just one pot of money, and we just go for it. So it's pretty, I guess, socialist, if you will.
Sorry.
Makes sense.
All right. Let's see. Let's keep going here with Chris's next message.
To follow up on my last comment, I guess what I see is people are practicing socialism within their own household. And I mean, maybe I don't know enough about socialism, and so correct me if I'm wrong, but is it socialism that people usually practice in the household, or am I even just taking these concepts and using them the wrong way?
Can anybody
answer that? Yeah.
Yes.
So yes, the latter portion of what you said is correct. I could definitely see everyone always has a visceral feeling about trying to put things into perspective using things that we already understand to some degree. And but yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean, as human beings, as it relates to other human beings, yes, like we don't practice the principles of the capitalist system. And in fact, internally, we are like kind of like tribally socialistic or primitive communists in that way, where we have. I mean, of course, with the caveat that there's a patriarchy typically practiced inside of the household. Not in every case, obviously. Some parents are cooler than others, but yeah. I mean, you are projecting a little bit as far as like systems go and interpersonal relationships, because really what capitalism is a relationship between classes of people, not necessarily individuals themselves.
I don't know. But maybe before I respond, maybe we can define the differences between socialism and communism, because that sometimes might shine some light. I don't know if anybody wants to take a stab at kind of.
I also pulled up you were talking about not wanting an echo chamber, so I pulled up a list of what the United States is best at.
Well, we'll hit that a little. We'll hit that in a little bit. Let's get through the messages first. But actually, I think that is a good idea. Because I think there's a lot of people who, when they hear socialism or communism, their mind immediately goes to the USSR or Venezuela or something like that. So when you say communism, Sebastian, what do you mean? What does that encompass?
Communism is, I mean, the very, very simple answer is a society with no class separations. Basically, there's one class of people, or rather, there is no class of people, because everyone's the same in terms of their social, their relationship to production. So no one has more power in terms of property or wealth. And we all share wealth holistically. And when we need to fix something in a community, we create the administrations or the administrative processes to fix those things. But it's Lenin would say it's the absence of democracy. I would say it's the logical conclusion to like a perfect democracy. But that's just me.
What about socialism now? Can you this is the one thing I like.
Yeah. Socialism for me, as a Marxist-Leninist, socialism to me literally means where the working class has authority by virtue of the threat of violence over all other classes. The working class meaning the 99%, because socialism, in a process of socialism, you still have classes, you still have like bosses and owners, but you have an expanded democracy that represents the working class, and the state apparatus is ran and directed by the working class.
Yep.
But I mean, in a colloquial sense, other
Canada.
people's definitions, like European definitions of socialism these days, amount to social democracy. So it's not actually socialist, but they call themselves socialist parties because socialism, in its principles, are still very appealing to those places. And there are also different kinds of socialism. You know, if you break it down using the Marxian terms of like utopian and scientific socialism. Utopian socialism is socialism through sheer like willpower of just like opting out of capitalism. But we know because of attempts at this that can't really happen because capitalism is a global system that where one class exerts power over another. So the whole point of socialism in a Marxian sense or scientific socialism is a process basically to absolve the capitalist class of their power.
Yeah, communism or socialism without like deep, like where everyone, if everyone was like at a PhD, well, I mean, I don't know, it would be arguing or whatever, but if everybody had like a deep or a greater level of education, where like the new standard wasn't grade 12, but it was like master's degree, like that was your minimum. Maybe these functions of like different forms of government, like a communist government, could maybe, in my opinion, work. But with a lack of like sort of education being like sort of a forefront of human sort of desire and accomplishment, communism, in my perspective, there won't ever be it won't ever function smoothly. And again, the fact that we're still fixated on these like forms of government that were created, while individuals were, working in chimney stack warehouses, right? And we haven't come to terms with like tweaking them or evolving them to have a hybrid between the forms of government, or whatever. Is that not even government? I guess it would be just sort of, anyway, whatever. We're so fixated. If you can't sort of have a little bit of one with the other. You have to, if you're in capitalism, well, if you're in for a penny, you're in for a penny. You can't, I don't know why that we're so, anyway, we're kind of rigid.
Well, no, you make a good point. And I mean, in my definition of socialism, I would argue that actually the genuine quote unquote mixed economy happens in socialism. The earliest stages of socialism, especially, you still have your market economy. You still have class struggle. You still have all of that. That stuff is still present. It's just the power dynamics have changed in their infancy. And the whole point, like that is the actual process of reaching a state of communism, at least theoretically, because we have not had that. So we can't say for sure if, we're not, communists are not supposed to be dogmatists. We're supposed to be scientific thinkers. So we take variables, we take into account new changes and stuff like that.
Sebastian, I want to honestly thank you for the breakdown of both of those terms. I honestly feel that sometimes when it comes to political parties, when they use they always said Obama was a socialist, you know what I'm saying? And I don't think at least in the States itself, the average person doesn't know what that is. You know what I mean? They don't know the term of what exactly is a socialist or what a communist is. And if they're a boomer, they're thinking back Cold War, like Hogan said, the USSR. You know what I mean? They're thinking like a time before where there's like bread lines and this, that, and the other, and people not getting theirs, and sharing wealth, if you will. But they don't understand the true definitions of these things, and they become like more trigger words than they are what they are. So.
Yeah, and one of the things that I often see is a conflation by the right with authoritarianism, which is interesting to me. That whenever you start talking about socialism or communism, inevitably the conversation, I'm sure there may be comments coming up where people say, well, socialism or communism is basically like means that you have no freedom, you have no rights, and then they'll list like Mao or whoever person they want to like talk about at the time. And I think that that's a myth. The socialism or communism does not necessarily equal authoritarianism. But if you have like bad actors who are going down that route, then you can.
Right. Like I'm a Canadian, by the way. Like, just to all cards on the table here. I know that sometimes I get stay out of our politics, but as a Canadian, I actually I didn't know that. I looked it up recently while like my 1.5 years or whatever it is I've been on stereo. I was like, because all the conversations going around, I looked up like what form of government is Canada. It's socialism, socialist something. It's like a hybrid, and I would have thought as a business owner that this was like I thought we were.
Uh-oh. We'll give him a second here.
We lose somebody?
Actually, there he is.
He's back. He's back.
Sorry, was a
There he is.
bit of like was a bit more of government oversight. So I didn't, but we're socialists essentially up here.
Yes.
And I guess in that statement, it's just that there's these like, I guess we were all kind of triggered by these like ideas of what that's going to mean if we're going to be like pinko commie sort of poor, ravaged, all wearing the same kind of clothing, milling around in mines or whatever. Like the idea of communism or socialism in our current perspective, but it's just a little bit of, I don't know.
Here's the dumbest definition of communism from the internet. A political theory derived by Karl Marx advocating class war and leading to a society in which all property is publicly owned and each person works and is paid according to their abilities and needs. So from that, I get that there could be a varying pay scale, right? Like if you're a rock star and that's a high value in society, maybe you're going to get paid a little more, So, and we're going to have robots to go in the mines, right?
Absolutely.
So I guess the only question there is like I always looked at communism as like kind of something that is a pipe dream until we get rid of like basically we create a moneyless society like Star Trek. You know what I mean? Like you look at Star Trek.
Yeah.
And that's how I envision like a communist society would have to work, because like I feel like when like money and like currency in general kind of create the incentive of it incentivizes greed and all this other terrible stuff. And I just don't know how you can have a classless society when the idea of money and currency is basically markers to create class, right? Like those who have and those who do not. So I'm just kind of curious as your thoughts there.
We're peacocks. The thing is, we're always going to be peacock types. So we always have like a dance or a feather. Like you're never going to have a situation where, do I think communism is like, oh my God, how magical that would be? Fuck, okay, I'm down. But we're peacocks. So if everybody right now in the show, our general region in North America, we're all like, okay, everybody's equal, right? And our livelihoods, like nobody has to work anymore. We have AI, right? That's all good. There's no like sucking septic tanks or whatever. But we're all peacocks a bit. We all want to shine. We all want to be seen. And there's always going to be that moment where we want to shine, to have the most attractive people around you, or like be recognized or seen. And that in a communist place, unless we have this understanding that somebody else might shine, but that the way they're shining is not devaluing how you're going to shine, right? They're not brighter, they're shining differently. Unless we have an understanding that you're not necessarily competing with anybody else, because what they're doing is not, it's a whole different ball game, right? What you're doing is valued in your own perspective. Until that occurs, until we have self-satisfaction, and I always go back to art being the way. I'll digress there. Go for it, Kenneth.
I will say this is like, when I look at ways the word communism has worked in certainly like in my what I've seen is like, you go back to the Michael Moore's movie like Sicko, you know what I mean? he takes all these people, like, they were first responders from 9/11, and they can't pay for their meds that they need to stay alive. You know what I mean? They're almost mortgaging their homes over it. He takes them down to Cuba, and they things they pay, like, thousands of dollars or hundreds of thousands of dollars for within months. They go down to Cuba, and it's like less than a Coke or whatever. I'm being sort of facetious on that. So, like,
Yeah.
and I'm not saying in shape or form that, like, there's a lot of problems with the whole situation down in Cuba. But in the same sense, it shows to where, at least when it comes to, like, their health care, it's a lot more efficient than ours. Plain and simple.
And you know what's even worse too? They went to a U.S. military base in Cuba, and they were able to get an asthma inhaler for $1.50 there that cost
Yes.
$1,500 here.
Yes.
What?
Well, American
So if
capitalism is
you sign up for the military and you volunteer to go kill beautiful people in beautiful places, then you can come back and live the socialist dream, right? You can get a GI Bill, you can get all these loans, favorable loans, right? All you got to do is go kill some people for the capitalist
I've got so
system.
much to say about all of this, but I do want to be an advocate for the audience real quickly. And I've noticed we have a lot of messages. I know this is y'all's
Yes.
show. I just maybe yeah.
No, you're
Oh, my
right. No,
goodness.
we got to pop the bubbles.
I didn't see that.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's do that. Yeah, we have a lot of messages here, and yeah, let's go.
Yeah, let's run
Chris,
through 'em.
next message.
I'm sorry. This is the third comment. I realized I meant to say
Okay.
communism. That's how little I know about these isms. So I'll just fall back and listen.
Chris, you're good, brother. We welcome all questions, all comments, as long as you're respectful.
Please.
I think that's the only thing we ask is be respectful. And yeah, anyway, let's keep going with Emmanuel Herschel. What's up, Emmanuel? How are you doing? Oops.
I think communism is an economic system, and socialism is more of a governing type of system.
Does anybody want to touch on that?
No.
All right.
He's
I think
right.
Sebastian
I mean,
described it best. It's a transition, right?
Yeah.
yeah, but the administration of the state is taken over by different people with different interests, rather than basically capitalists and their officers.
Yeah, bankers.
that's a good way to put it.
Exactly.
Let's get to Emmanuel's next message here. Emmanuel.
I didn't speak clearly earlier. So communism is an economic system where the government owns private property and the means of production. They own everything, basically. Socialism, what's the word? Socialism is the ideological framework of community-oriented ideas.
Well, here's the thing: is because we've applied so many different definitions of these things, and I'm my vision of these things are set forth essentially by the people who had the original vision here, right? So, like, yes, sure, but like the government as we know it will not exist in a communist society. If our whole purpose is to, as communists, if we're talking for myself here, is to eliminate as many antagonisms in society as possible, one of those antagonisms is literally government power. So essentially, over time, our goal is to eliminate governance as we know it. We would still have administrative functions, but they would be integrated into society, especially now with the advancements in technology that we have. We could perceive that reality more clearly.
Okay.
Chain voting.
Okay. So the six of us in this room right now, and it's just in our little world, there's only the six of us, okay? Which would be quite, as much as I love this conversation, hopefully there'd be more. But there's just six in this scenario. And we all need a place to live, right? And there's a lake. And then we split the land around the lake, like by size evenly. But maybe myself and Bjorn and another, we're on the side that has a really nice sunset view. Okay, so we had these like these two properties that have like real nice access to water, maybe like, and then maybe somebody else might be like they always have a shadow of the mountain, right? Just in the divvy, equal in size and square footage of the actual land, but like all of a sudden everybody's like on the other side of the lake, like fuck man, we get this like we had no sunlight, we had no sunsets, like, but they're over there, they get like just in that how do you solve that in a communist sort of form of government where individual might be like, hey, what the heck, like I can't even grow food because I don't even get sun, I only get like 2 hours of sun every day, you know what I mean? Like that's where my query is. How do you come to term? How do we come to some sort of balance in just that?
Well,
does that make sense?
I would argue if there was only the 6 of us on the planet or on this island, well, we would have a more of a tribal communalism or communism, where we would share everything. Like literally, like if you look at any Native American tribes, yeah, no one has the spikes. They don't.
Yeah, you're poking holes in my.
I'm sorry.
This is good. You're right, but
I'm not sharing with Canon. I'm not sharing anything with Canon, just so we're clear.
I will never share anything with the Bjorn. I tell you that.
I will share anything with anybody unless it's a bed, because the way Bjorn and Cannon snore, there's no way I get any sleep at all. So.
and he knows that because he fell asleep on the show probably sometimes.
Multiple times.
But like,
bubbles. Let's hit the bubbles.
All right.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, we can get back into that because that's a really good question. I just don't. Yeah, that seems like a really deep. Sort of that like a bit of an in-depth answer. So let's keep moving with the bubbles, and then we'll kind of jump back into the conversation then. Spanish Defiant, what's up, brother?
Socialism is just like communism, and in the early state of communism, where they're gonna want to transition to communism.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of And Another Thing with Dave. If you're digging what I'm doing, picking up what I'm throwing down, please do share with friends and on social media. Until next time, keep on digging for the truth.